What's going on, everybody, and welcome to episode 15 of Tallboys
and Trackmasters. James, that don't look like no beer.
This is a immune support propel water because I have a nasty sinus infection going on right now.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, so bear with my horrible voice. You hear me drone on a little bit, but I'm excited about tonight's episode. Yeah, we've had to postpone a little bit here the last couple times, so it's nice to get back on a regular schedule and try to get this going again. So yeah, episode 15, man. It's hard to believe that we got that far already. 15 episodes.
It's been wild. I don't even remember when we started doing this. It feels like it's been ongoing for, a long time now.
Yeah. So tonight's episode is gonna be a little bit of everything as far as buying a used motorcycle as compared to buying a new one. And once we discuss that for a little bit, we're going to go over what to look out for whenever you're buying a used bike, and maybe help some of you guys out that are maybe in the market right now to look. So I'll let you kind of start off if you want to and talk about buying a new motorcycle from a dealership.
So I've not done it personally. However, based on the way the market's trended the past couple years, especially post-COVID, you're seeing bikes out there that are functionally at the end of their useful life that people are wanting, just $3,000 under what you can buy one brand new for. And it's already been, modded, set up for somebody else, especially if there's been suspension work done to it. And, they were, 30, 40, 50 plus pounds heavier than you, or, vice versa. And, ultimately you're getting kind of a dice roll in terms of maintenance. So versus, eating the cost to start with a clean slate, I think in a lot of cases is better if you can swing the money. So the days of, picking up a usable bike for $1,000, $1,500 or something is probably not coming back anytime soon.
No. Yeah, like you said, COVID really hit every kind of market hard, whether it be a vehicle, a motorcycle, what have you. And I'm one of those
especially crazy, like, toys, like stuff you just use for fun. Nobody really uses motorcycles to commute in the States compared to other countries. So I was definitely surprised that, power equipment went the same way that commuter cars and stuff did.
Yeah, in a way, with everything being shut down, and the free checks of substantial amounts of money rolling in, it afforded everyone the opportunity to buy some type of toy.
Yep.
And I think once everybody in the used market figured that out, they started jacking the prices up on everything, man. Like even a rag out 20-year-old pop-up camper right now is still $6,000-$7,000. That's insane. I'm one of those guys that's constantly on Facebook Marketplace, just scrolling on my thumb, looking for some type of deal. And they're not out there anymore, man, on any type of recreation equipment. It's insane.
Well, it's a sign of the economy to come too. It's going to end up being, people can't just let stuff go for a deal because they need the money. They're not getting rid of it because, I don't want that thing laying around anymore. They're getting rid of it because, we're not going to make rent if I don't sell this.
Yeah.
That's right around the corner. But things, I don't foresee them going back to normal, until there's some kind of economic downturn that force people to start selling things they don't, I guess, need on a regular basis. But it's like when I bought my T-Dub, I think I only paid like $1,300 for it or something like that. It was a 95 model, only had like 4,000 miles on it. Probably turn around now and sell it for, 3+.
Easy.
And it's insane. It was in a hobby where a lot of people are priced out from the get-go. It's only gotten worse in the last couple years. I mean, I don't know where it goes from here, but in my opinion, based on what I see, posted to the group page or scrolling around Facebook Marketplace, trying to spend money that I don't need to spend. I, uh, I I think it's better to at least explore trying to buy new. If you can find a reasonable dealership that's not going to beat you over the head with, you know, every imaginable charge, you can end up getting some pretty decent deals. So I
Yeah,
think Arthur paid like 11 or something like that for his KTM, and that was a brand new off the showroom floor 23 model.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
you go on Marketplace and you see ones with 100 hours for 9 grand.
Yeah,
So that the difference of $2,000 in that case definitely seems like a an investment towards not having something that somebody else has already set up for their needs, or worse yet, because all these little tiny, M8 by 1.25 fasteners threaded into soft aluminum, He-Man didn't have a chance to torque your drain plug down or anything like that. You don't have to sweat strip bolts, or worse yet, troubleshoot electrical nightmares. I know you got into an issue with that little Honda that you bought where the wiring harness has been hacked to pieces, try to put a light bar on it, which is
yeah,
some serious West Virginia hauler activities.
yeah. Some guys tried to. For those of you who don't know, I bought a. It was an older XR 250R off a buddy of mine at work, and it was a basket case project that he started putting back together. And I had a free evening one night and was going to see if I could get spark, because the thing felt like it had good compression and it was getting fuel, but it wasn't firing. And lo and behold, yeah, it's not getting any spark. When I started digging into it, these guys had butt spliced into the CDI box wiring, trying to put on a 12-inch light bar on the handlebars. And yeah, electrical was definitely one of the most aggravating things for me, especially whenever you're working on a used bike.
Yeah,
Yeah, like you were saying though, I've bought 2 brand new bikes in my life, and it has to say something that makes it. It's a certain feeling whenever you walk into that
yep,
dealership and you know that you are buying this thing for yourself. You're the one that's going to put the first few miles on it. It's your baby. Like, that's a great feeling to have. It really is. And you're not walking into it blind, not knowing how many miles are on something, how ragged out something's been. And, all in all, it's a great feeling to have that brand new machine in the back of your rig coming headed to the house, and knowing,
yep.
maybe that weekend, hey, I'm going to show up with this brand new bike and ride with my buddies here. This can be a good time.
Yep. It's definitely a good feeling, followed immediately by one of the worst feelings is the first time you dump it or launch it into a tree or something. And then the real fun starts after that. I really don't start having fun with stuff until the shine's knocked off of it.
Yep.
When things are to the point where I can treat it like a tool as opposed to like a art piece or something like that, that's when I really start to enjoy things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I was probably 10, I think. We'd actually went to down to RG Honda, and we're looking to buy a TTR 125 big wheel for me. I was racing the youth 4-stroke class, and had an old, just run down, beat up XR 100 that was on its last legs. And I remember we went into the dealership there, and I'm all excited. I'm sitting on the thing, and they let me ride it around their little track behind the shop there. You know, they just refused to deal on the price whatsoever. And literally 20 minutes, or not even that, just 5 minutes up the road was Leeson's. That's when RG was down at the bottom of the hill. We swung by Leeson's after RG didn't really want to play ball with anything, and ended up buying that DRZ 125 big wheel off of them for a lot less than what the Yamaha was. And
Yep.
dude, I was so stoked just riding on the interstate. That thing was in the back of Dad's truck, and I'm just constantly looking back and just staring at it the whole way home. So excited.
I'll never forget getting my first machine. I was pretty young, probably under 7 years old. I got a little 80cc rear wheel drive, like chain drive quad,
Mm-hmm.
and still remember the feeling of seeing that thing for the first time. That was pretty wild.
Yeah.
But the like I said, things are way different now. At a point in time, dealers seem like they well, most dealers seemed like they wanted to sell things.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's like they have no incentive whatsoever. I don't know if it's, trying to make up on margins post COVID, or, we're in a period of time now. There might genuinely be a guy that's 4 states away that's going to come pay sticker for it, and they're not lying about it this time.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've tried to hit up some local dealers to when I was looking for another bike, and yeah, it was essentially you either pay exactly what we want or we won't deal with you. Period.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. But the same things happen in the private used market. Is I don't understand what it is, but it seems people are just desperate. Like there's a saddle for every horse. No matter what the price is, no matter how ridiculous it is, somebody will show up, in a short period of time and
Yeah.
pay that, and be glad they did. It wasn't like that. You used to see the same bikes. Like I had my eye on a DR350 for like 5 months that needed some plastics and junk like that, but the bike was there and it had a title, and it started at like $2,000, and it finally worked its way down and worked its way down to like 800 or something like that. And then before I could make a move on it, it disappeared. But that was pre-COVID, so that's
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah, man. It's really insane right now. Like a lot of dealers it's kind of not as bad as it used to be, but like
yep.
just 6 months ago, no one could get any inventory. Like there was nothing on the showroom floor. And I think that's what was driving guys to buy used, or like you said, go out of state. I know a real good friend of mine at work, Justin McVicker, who we're going to actually start riding with here coming up pretty soon. He was looking for a KTM 690. Could not find one anywhere around here. And if he was going to order one, he was going to pay well over sticker price for any of these local dealerships around here for it. And ended up going out to Ridersville and picked one up there that they had. It was still
talking
yeah. And they treated him right. And it was, $2,000 cheaper than anything else was going to be around here. So he ended up going out of state. But yeah, I think, the COVID market making stuff not available definitely drove the used price up, but the gaps are insane. Before COVID, your price gap 10 years ago, say you could go buy a 450 for, 6,300 bucks, or you could buy a used one that was probably in still pretty decent shape for $3,300, which at that point, even if, it didn't have that many hours on it, it was worth the buy.
Absolutely.
But now that gap is like $800, like, or $1,000 more to go buy new.
That, and it's just not worth it. It's not worth risking inheriting somebody's basket case.
Yeah.
If you're already up to that point for the buy-in, if you're within $1,000 or so within buying new, and I understand that's hyperbole, it's typically more money than that. But if you've already saved 3/4 the cost of a new one, I think you would be better off if you can swing it to save the remaining quarter and go buy new.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get yourself in some serious, scenarios out there with this is going to be really fitting for me to say this, but like bikes that have been drowned, or bikes where they thought that you could just take a can of Maxima air filler oil and spray it on like a little skim of hairspray on the filter, and you're done. And it sucks, a whole big ride's worth of dust into the motor, and gives you a behind the shed valve lap job and all that. And a lot of guys just don't seem to maintain their equipment, which is something I never understood. You pay all this money for this thing, and then you start wanting to skimp oil changes and everything else. I see some absolute terrible stuff on the forums on a weekly basis of stuff that guys are asking, like, is 30 plus hours a reasonable oil change interval? It's like, don't buy a bike from this guy.
Yeah, man, it's absolutely insane, and you're always going to take a risk buying used no matter what. I'm at the camp where there's a threshold.
Agreed.
The bike doesn't have that many hours on it, and it's under half the price of a new one, that's probably considered maybe going and checking out at least.
Yep.
But you look on Marketplace anymore, and it's always the same bikes over and over again. And I know, like, it's kind of a running gag. Like, we'll send each other bikes that are completely way overpriced. Yeah. I don't know the dude's name. There's a 2014 500 EXC like mine that's set up just like mine, and it has about the same amount of miles, which is like, I think mine's got 53 or 5,400 miles on it now. Yeah. Which, that's a lot for a KTM 500, honestly. And if it's maintained well, then
kind of depends. There's some guys out there that have like 400-600 hours on them.
Yeah,
like desert, kind of hard usage case. It's all on the maintenance. But sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. But this bike, it's nothing fancy. It's stock tank. It's a KTM tail bag, a pipe. No program or anything, and it's just like bone stock. And the guy is asking $9,800 for this thing, and I'm like, no, for another $1,800 you can go buy a brand new one. That's not a good deal. That thing is, it's almost 10 years old. It's just not worth it anymore.
Well, I see a lot of guys with bikes that appear to be in really good condition. They're low mileage because it seems that people have a habit, especially of larger bore bikes, of buying them and then riding it once, getting terrified of it, and parking it in the garage for the next decade. I don't care how well it was kept. I don't care if there was a drop cloth over it the entire time. All the rubber components in the engine will start to degrade with time, especially without use. Moisture will start to collect inside the engine over time. It will start to, dissolve in the oil, and well, not dissolve, but get down into the sump and everything else from the condensation. But that completely, that's without even regarding the difficulty of finding parts for some of these older bikes. I see some, like there was a Husqvarna TE610 or something like that, which some people were, holding a really high regard as far as larger bore dual sports go. It's not easy to find parts for it anymore versus, my generation KTM, your generation KTM. If I can't get it locally, which I typically can, especially with, Gonzo Cycle Works, Steels and OEM Parts, and any of the other typical ones, Morgantown Power Sports, etc., I can get it online and have it here in the span of a couple of days, which I like to wrench and everything just much as I like to ride. I don't like to sacrifice riding because I'm waiting on parts.
No.
So that's something you get into too, buying older bikes. I remember there for a period of time I was seeing like an old KTM 525 or something like that for some ridiculous prices, like $8,500, and it had 6,000 miles or something like that on it. People just refuse to understand that A, it's a toy, B, it's a depreciating asset. Whether you use it or not, it's a depreciating asset.
Yeah.
It used to be a rule of thumb, you roll that thing into the back of your truck and you just lost $2,000 off the sale price. That's just how it was.
Yeah, you're right, man. And, another thing to say, nothing beats the feeling of a brand new motorcycle that's never had any type of riding put on it.
Yep.
I don't care how many times you strip a bike down to the bare frame at the end of a riding season and replace everything, every component on it, every bearing, every isolated rubber piece, no matter what, you completely rebuild the thing. It still will never feel like it did when it rolled off the dealership floor.
They're only new once.
Yeah.
After that, it's just a constant state of, gradually wearing itself to pieces.
That's true. Yeah, frames. I think people don't realize how much frames on a motorcycle bend and twist and flex, honestly.
Well, having gone through, mechanical engineering, frame's a really good example of cyclical loading. So cyclical loading is where you can have something that's, way, way below the point at which the steel would bend, but the constant loading and unloading tension compression cycle gradually fatigues it, and the steel will actually start to drastically lose rigidity and strength. And there's pro motocross guys that swear that after like a couple hours or whatever, like 10 hours on a frame, they can tell the
Oh, yeah.
difference in rigidity.
Yep.
And luckily I'm not fine tuned, so I can just ride whatever piece of junk starts that day when I go down to the garage.
Yeah.
So
You
but
know,
yeah, they're only new once, and typically it only gets worse the more it changes hands.
yep, that's
You
true.
end up with like a village bicycle bike that everybody's had a ride on and everything, and I mean it's just a risk. And once upon a time, you know, engine rebuilds weren't quite as costly. Um, but now, between the availability of parts and the increase in labor for the shops that you can find that will do it, you're looking at a pretty big prospect if you have to do some engine work that you can't achieve on your own.
Yeah,
Uh,
you're right.
that doesn't necessarily apply to two strokes. It seems that the whole two stroke rebuild process is still, you know, same as it always was. It's way cheaper compared to a four stroke rebuild.
Yep.
So
Yep. And another thing too, not just like KTM's, there's still some good deals out there on some brand new motorcycles. Like
yes,
it's really surprising, just honestly, how cheap like a new KLR 650 is. And I think that would be a great bike for somebody that's maybe a little bit bigger and wanting to start out in the
yep,
sport. Like you get, I'm of the mind where like I don't need the big pannier bags and stuff like that on the side of a dual
yeah.
sport bike, but like a base model KLR 650 out the door, I think I've seen them for like less than $6,000, like 58, 5,900 bucks. That's a hell of a deal, I think, for something that's going to be able to take you all around anywhere you want to. It's brand new.
And it's all a matter of shopping around. Please, just for your own sake and the sake of your money, I know you worked hard to earn. Shop around, man.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to drive. Into another state. Drive 2 states away. It's not going to be as bad as you think it is.
Yeah.
It'll cost you a little bit of money in gas, but there's no way that it's going to cost you the amount of money you're going to save by going elsewhere. Um,
Yep.
I think when I went to pick up my Yamaha, we drove to Harrisonburg, Virginia, or something like that. Of course, you got to go through like Mount Storm and the mountains and everything. Totally worth it. Fun little road trip. Went out there, picked it up, brought it back, saved a good bit of money by doing it like that.
Yep.
And definitely don't be discouraged. And on the other side of that coin, if you drive all the way out there and the dealership starts trying to strong arm you with ridiculous fees that you already thought you had discussed and everything, don't be afraid to turn around and drive home. Don't be that sucker if you can help it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know it might not be as like, I don't know, it might not be as common as it used to be, but especially with COVID and there just not being any inventory, people just buying up whatever they want. But
Yep.
I remember multiple times going to dealerships and seeing, KX250s or any type of motocross bike that was a leftover. And we're talking like a 2-year leftover. Like
Yep.
the thing had been there at the dealership for a long time. And you could get some crazy deals on those bikes because they just were tired of them sitting there. And that might not be as prevalent today, but I know it's still out there in a few dealerships. And you got something that's a year older than the brand new bike, but has 0 miles on it, and there's no changes between those 2 years. Why not just buy the cheaper one?
Yeah, if you can find a last year's model or 2 years ago's model, typically, and this is the topic that we've went at length about. If it's a Japanese bike, chances are it's the same thing that was available 5 years ago.
Yep.
If you can go find like a CRF 250 or KLX 250, now that the 300s have come out, those are the hot new bikes that everybody wants.
Yeah.
Well, between my experience and the experience of AJ, I can tell you they're both fine bikes, the 250s, and you can get them at a considerable discount right now. I think my buddy down in Elton picked up his CRF 250L that was a 2019 or 2020 model left over, maybe $4,000 or something like that. I mean, it was pretty reasonably priced, and I mean they're still great bikes. But if you can get in a dealer showroom that has inventory, which is starting to improve, but if you can find the model that's got some dust on the seat and looks like it's been sitting there for a while, that's at least a good starting point.
Yeah. I know years ago, right off of Interstate 68, where the Pilot travel gas station is right now. There used to be a Kawasaki dealership there called Sport Rider, and they had it was an '03 KX250 that was hanging from the ceiling with cables, and it was kind of like a display thing.
Yeah.
And whenever they were going to go out of business, they pretty much sold everything on the dealership floor. My buddy went up there looking for a KX350, and that was the only one they had. And they were like, I don't know if we can really sell that one. He's like, give you $3,300 or whatever it was right now. And they were like, all right, we'll figure out a way to get it down. So it took a day with a fork truck and a hook and everything, but ended up buying the display model that'd been up there. You know, this was in 07, 08. You know, that thing was way obsolete, but got a hell of a deal on it, and it had 0 miles on it.
I guess before we move on from the topic of new versus used, I got to talk about the DRZ 400. I got to.
Okay.
How on earth is Suzuki wanting the amount of money they're wanting for a new DRZ 400 when it's, I get it in terms of if it's not broke, don't fix it. I'm a big Toyota guy, you know, that's kind of the design philosophy of it. But for the amount of money they're wanting for a DRZ 400, if you're looking for like a woods weapon, you can save up another couple grand and go buy a KTM that's going to be, you know, 240, 250 pounds somewhere in there, as opposed to something that starts at like 320.
Yeah.
I just boggles my mind the amount of money that they're going for new, and then the amount of money that people want for them used, even with higher miles. I know that the engines are a lot less stressed than a KTM and that it'll go more miles and everything, but you know, everything else is going to wear out in a very similar manner if you're riding the same terrain. Your wheel bearings, your wear items on your forks, you know, your spokes, everything. And then I'm just surprised at how much money they're still going for a bike that had the research and development money paid for, you know, when I was in kindergarten.
Yeah. No, I'm with you there, because I'm of the camp that, you know, especially in our sport, you know, dual sporting and everything, you know, the Japanese bikes to me don't the brand new ones don't appeal to me whatsoever.
No.
You haven't changed it since it was brand new in '93. So to me, if I can find an XR 650L that's, you know, 8, 9, 10 years old and is already set up, has everything on it that I'm going to already put on it,
Yep.
with low miles, there's no way in hell I'm going to go to the Honda dealership and buy a brand new one for $3,000 to $4,000 more than what I'm going to pay for the one that's already set up. Yeah, to have bold new graphics put on it. Like, you know, at least, you know, some of these other manufacturers and dual sports, especially KTM, they're updating their stuff. It's different. It's, you know, completely different engine, and there's some changes there. If you don't have a change on anything and you're still going to charge premium price for it, I'm not with it. DRZs are the same way. DR650s.
Which I understand they're very limited in what they can do due to emissions.
Right.
That concept's not lost on me by any means, but
yeah,
you know, it's still just surprising the amount of money it's going for.
Yep. Well, before we jump into what to look out for, especially if you decide you're going to buy used, let's get it. We got a couple comments here. First one's from our buddy Rob. Says his first new bike was an '84 KDX 200. He didn't have a pickup at the time, so he laid it on its side and brought it home in the back of a 2-door hatchback Chevette. Now that's
too
awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. My grandma was a diehard Chevette woman, and I love those things. Used to ride in the back of them in the church. It was awesome. And old Chad Johnson says that his buddy drove clear to Indiana to get his new 450L. Yeah, man. I mean, if you find a heck of a deal, and I'm with you too, Trevor, like you said, that's part of the adventure too. Get out, see some new country you haven't seen maybe, and just make an adventure out of it.
I mean, even if you got to get a hotel room for the night or something, you know, it'd spend $80, $100 on top of your fuel price and whatever you got in food, and you know, you stand to save $3,000, $4,000 in some cases.
A lot of times you do. All right, so with that being said, and I think we've touched on that pretty good, you're bound to determine that no, I'm not going to buy a brand new motorcycle. I've only got this much money. I'm going to buy used, and we're going to explain some stuff to look out for. So I know I've got a couple points in my head to
Same.
talk about, but I'll let you start out, Trevor. What's like some number one or two things to look out for, you think?
So my no go is electrical. Straight up, my no go is electrical. Because once a wiring harness has been sliced and diced, I'm not saying that modified. I mean, you can set things up in such a way that it's done reasonably. I'm talking about like you look and there's like residential wire nut connectors and like black tape and everything else, and it's just a mess in there.
Yeah.
And that's a no go for me. And the other thing is buying a bike without riding it, without test riding it.
Yeah.
I walked away from a deal trying to get a used KTM from a local dealer because they absolutely refused to let me test ride it. Even if I left the money on the counter to pay for it, they absolutely refused to let me test ride it.
Yeah.
And
That's a big red flag.
absolutely, yeah. Any time you pull up anywhere, this is private sale or buying something used from a dealer or what have you, has to start with a cold engine. Cold enough that you can put your hand on the cylinder or the header and it's cold. Start it up, listen to it. A lot of bikes, especially ones with hydraulic timing chain tensioners, will be a little bit chattery to start with. You'll have some valve train noise, stuff like that. That's normal. The problem is when it sounds like a paint shaker full of marbles and rusty nails, and it gets worse when you crack the throttle on a little bit. That's a huge problem.
Yeah. I think something that doesn't get talked about a whole lot, especially when you're buying a used motorcycle, is safety. If some guy's got a bike and he's wanting me to meet him in downtown Pittsburgh, I'm probably not going to go there and look at that motorcycle.
Well, that goes for selling too, because we both know somebody that personally got burnt with that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get into.
It sounds too good to be true. It is. If some boy asks you to meet him in the inner city and let you test ride the bike, absolutely not, buddy. You can come to me. And even then, I don't allow test rides without cash in hand. When I was trying to buy that beta or sell that beta, I had a boy drive up from like Buckhannon, and I made it very clear in the sale ad that if I don't, you can test ride it. You can go do whatever you want in the Walmart parking lot.
Yeah.
Put the money in my hand, and you can go do it. And he got real butthurt that I wouldn't let him go do it. And all I think was, dude, I don't know if you got a buddy like 2 miles down the road with a box trailer over in the Ace Hardware parking lot with the back down on it. You're just going to roll that thing up in there and disappear. I got no way of knowing.
Yeah.
And, that's a thing where you have to be right 100% of the time. And if you're wrong once, you get burned.
Yep. Yeah. Most of us can't afford that.
No.
Yeah, for those of you that are kind of wondering, our old buddy Fred Miller's son, Mikey, was selling a YZ250F and agreed to meet the guy. I believe it was in like the outskirts of Akron, Ohio, and showed up, unloaded the bike. The guy handed him a giant envelope full of cash, looked in it really quickly and saw that, the cash looked like it was there. Said, yeah, all right, man. This dude hops on it and immediately leaves, and he's fleeing through back alleys and people's yards, and it was just a big setup. And the guy stole the bike, and once they got the envelope open, I think there was like maybe $200 or $300 in there, and the rest of it was fake.
Yep.
So, yeah, unless it's somebody that I personally know, there's no way I'm going to let you come to my house. You're not going to know where I live.
Yep.
I don't want to come to your house. I'm not delivering it to you. We're going to meet somewhere.
Somewhere with a nice big parking lot.
Yeah, usually a Walmart or the mall or something that's nice and lit, lots of cameras. And yeah, you're not riding it without cash in hand.
Yep.
And the other thing, definitely, if the guy's not going to let you test ride it, I mean, if you're a serious buyer, don't waste people's time either.
Yeah.
Don't go and think that this guy's got a fully decked out DR 650 for $3,700, and you show up with $1,000 thinking you're going to buy this thing. Like, don't waste people's time.
I'll laugh at you and send you back home.
Yeah.
I've talked to several people.
Yeah, be serious about the purchase. You're wasting your time and the other guy's time. But yeah, if they don't want to let you ride it, you say you got cash in hand and they say no test rides, that's a big red flag to me. I don't want to. Yeah. I'm not dealing with your piece of junk.
In the same vein as not a guy not wanting you to test ride a bike is Well, it just needs a tune-up. Just needs a spark plug. Just needs carburetor blown out.
No.
Think about it. If it was an easy job, those are all like 1 hour
Yep.
jobs. If it was easy, they would have done it.
Yep.
There is no way that somebody in their right mind would sell a bike because it needed a new spark plug or it needed the carb blown out.
Yeah.
That's easy stuff that you can do. The reason they're selling it is either they're lying about the number of hours on it or the miles, and the top end is just toast.
Yeah.
Or there's some other issue with it. I mean, you can get burned really easy, but that's not to say that you can't do your due diligence and show up with a compression tester. And, of course, I'd tell them beforehand. That'll save you both the time, because if you say, well, I'm just going to show up with my compression tester and check this out, and they start getting really expensive, you know that it's junk. But if it's a guy that, just really genuinely doesn't care to go through the carb or whatever to get it running and the compression checks out, then
yeah,
the worst case scenario, if you have to buy a carb off eBay, you're not going to be out very much.
Yeah.
If you can, if you like to tinker, if you like to wrench on stuff and you can use your mind, there's some deals to be had out there by guys that are just fed up with, they went to get their bike out after winter or something, the carb's all gummed up and they're just done with it. But that's for carbureted bikes. Fuel injected bikes is typically not subject to that, getting the works gummed up and everything.
Yeah. I've bought, I don't know how many used bikes. I'd say 99% of the bikes I've bought have been used motorcycles. And to me, presentation means a lot too.
Yep.
I roll up into somebody's place and the bike's at the end of the driveway. It's on a stand. Everything's there. The guy's got owner's manuals and receipts for maintenance stuff. Like, that's awesome. That's a bike that I'm probably going
a log book. Somebody keeps some form of a log book of maintenance is somebody it's good to buy off of. I saw there's a comment talking about buy from a guy in your friend group, where, how it's taken care of. And that's how I came across my KTM.
Yep.
And, fantastic. But you can tell a lot about somebody or somebody's bike based on, like you said, how they present it and how they carry themselves.
Yeah.
You can tell pretty quick if this is somebody that has a presence of mind to do proper maintenance or not.
I've showed up to people's houses like that, and I've also showed up to where this bike is in a shipping container with 3 used cars in front of it and a bunch of drywall and plywood that you have to get out.
Yep.
And the guy's sitting there saying, "Oh, I had it running yesterday. I don't know why it's not starting today." Yeah, bullshit, man. This thing hasn't moved in 5 years, so that's not something I want.
Even a bike that has a valve sticking out of the top of the piston still ran when it was parked, right up until the point that it stopped running.
Yeah, and just do a basic check.
Yeah.
If it's on a stand, that's perfect. You can check your steering stem bearings, grabbing the forks, check all the bearings on it, wheel bearings, swing arm bearings, just little stuff like that.
And that's all stuff that if you're going to be in this hobby, you need to know how to replace that stuff anyway. And It's really not that bad. We live in a period of time when there's never been a greater number of resources to learn how to do that stuff. I think maintenance is a huge part of, the hobby, whether some people like it or not. You'll go broke trying to have somebody else maintain your bike.
Yep.
And stuff like wheel bearings, steering stem bearings, stuff like that. If they're wore out or getting to be wore out, you can use that as kind of a bargaining point. My biggest thing is asking about oil changes and taking a look at the air filter.
Yeah.
If they haven't taken the time to try to make a bike look decent for sale, that's a huge red flag to me.
Yeah.
If you didn't, and you don't have to put fresh brand new plastics on it or anything like that. I understand that some stuff's wear items, but if I pop open the air box and that thing's got stink bugs and leaves and everything else hanging off of it, and it looks like it was just oiled with whatever gear oil came out of your tractor, that's a no-go for me. That tells me everything I need to know about how that machine was maintained overall. And it's just not.
Yeah, you don't want to. you don't want to show up and buy the bike that was raced on Sunday and still has mud all over it. Like that's not something you want to do. Another thing that I think gets overlooked a little bit, look over the engine cases with a fine tooth comb, because I have gotten burned several times with in a little nook and cranny on some part of the case, there's JB Weld on it. And that ought to tell you everything you need to know about the motorcycle, that it's probably going to be a wore out piece of junk.
Yep.
Yeah, all the fluids, pop the radiator cap off, make sure it's full of antifreeze, not using antifreeze. There's oil in the sight glass, and I think it also goes back to how much maintenance you're willing to put into something. If I'm spending, $1,500 on something, I'm kind of expecting it to be maybe a piece of junk that needs some work.
Oh yeah, you got to temper your expectations.
Yeah, if I'm spending $5,000-$6,000 on something, it better be pretty decent. I'm not going to let a little bit of stuff slide, and I'm going to use that as a bartering tool.
Yep.
Like, hey man, this, both tires are wore out. There's 3 spokes missing. The swing arm bearings are shot. Like, I'm not giving you $6,000 for this thing. I might give you 4 or 3,500. That's probably.
And that's when they start getting really angry.
Yeah.
Another thing is, like I said, I can't really explain. It's just the way that somebody presents themselves. You can tell a lot. A big part of it is, especially with the small fasteners on these bikes, is, does this guy strike me as somebody that wants to gorilla torque everything into oblivion? Because you go and find out that the drain pan or the drain plug is stripped out. Well, or worse than stripped out, is they've tightened it and it's actually cracked instead of pulled the threads out. That's huge. You're either going to get lucky and find a buddy that can weld that,
Excuse me,
or you're splitting cases and replacing them. If it's on like a KTM, I can tell you from the parts catalog that a new set of matched cases is in the order of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, if you can get them.
Yep. So
we've got about 15 minutes left, and I want to maybe talk about some stories, like what experiences buying used bikes.
Sure.
Excuse me. I've had way better luck buying used motorcycles off of people I know than I have buying bikes off of people I don't know.
Yep.
I think that just goes with the territory. When I bought my XR650R, I've known about that bike since I was like 10, 11 years old. I had a poster of Scott Summers and Johnny Campbell in the desert wanting one of those bikes as I was growing up, and my dad's buddy John Johnson had one. And I know that thing was barely ridden. It was meticulously maintained. So when it came up for sale, I jumped on the opportunity. I knew that was going to be a great bike, and it was a great bike.
Yep.
My KTM 500 that I bought off of my buddy Aaron Johnson, it was originally purchased by a local guy, Dorsey Moorhead, who's in the group and has done some rides with us. And Aaron bought it, fixed it up a little bit, did some stuff to it, did some maintenance, and I couldn't pass that deal up. It was half the price of a new one, and it had everything on it I wanted, and it was meticulously maintained. Yep. So, yeah, I've had way better luck buying that type of stuff. And I've had one good experience buying a used bike out of the old bulletin board, which is sad to say is pretty well defunct these days. There was an ad in there. I think it was 14 or 15. I was looking for a 125 two-stroke race bike. This would have been in like 03, 04. There was a 2001 YZ 125 for sale on the bulletin board. And it had been in there for weeks on weeks on weeks, and still in there. And it was they were asking $2,000 or best offer, and there really wasn't a whole lot of description about it. So I ended up calling the guy, and you could tell right off the bat it's an old man. Like, we're talking father time old man. And it was somewhere out in Preston County in the boonies. And I begged my mom to take me out there, and we ended up taking the truck out there. And pretty decent house, and this dude is old. He is ancient, and he's shuffling out the driveway, and he's like, the bike's in the bottom of the garage here, but I have to move some stuff. And I'm thinking, here we go. It's going to be a big piece of junk. I get in there, and the thing's got like this much dust on it. Pull it out in the sunlight, kind of wipe it off a little bit. And yeah, it looks kind of, rough, just sitting around for a while, but this thing has like no hours on it. The paint's still all on the frame. The paint's still on the foot pegs. Like this thing has hardly ever been ridden. And the only thing that was weird about it was like the front tire was wore out. And the old man's like, I just put brand new tires on it. And I'm like, that front tire is completely bald, bud. Yeah, you're right. That front tire is kind of wore out. It needs replaced. I'm like, okay. He let me start it up, ride it around. It rode like a brand new bike. There was nothing wrong with the thing. And he was like, I really just need to get rid of it before I kick the bucket. And I'm like, oh my God, yeah. And I think we ended up getting that thing for $1,000. So great deal. I've been burned more times than I've had success when it comes to buying used from people I don't know.
Yep. Of course, I got my KTM off Joe.
I was going to say you and AJ highly frequent Uncle Joe Tennett's used motorcycle shop.
Yep. So I got that thing. I had like 600 some miles on it. And at the time, he stated that he just wanted to get out of the more trail, like rough terrain oriented side of things, and was tired of, being cramped up on a dirt bike chassis essentially. And,
right.
Lucked out big time there. My other two bikes, my Yamaha and my Kawasaki, I bought one from Harrisonburg, Virginia, from Early Cycle Center.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Home of the tiny little tractor?
My Yamaha came from Early Cycle Center.
Oh, my God.
Virginia.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Please tell me you've seen the Yamaha Tri-Moto commercial.
Yep.
Oh, God. So there a while back, some guy posted one of those up on one of the for sale groups on Facebook. And I commented that on there immediately in all caps. Where'd you get that tiny little tractor? Nobody had any idea what I was talking about. It was sad.
Yeah, and I got my my Kawasaki came from RG's. That was back when you could get a deal, especially at RG's. I don't know if many people would have gotten out of there with a decent deal, but getting close to 10,000 miles on it, I've never had an issue. So I can say comfortably I got a good deal on it. I think I paid like $4,200 on it, and it had about 700 miles on it or something like that.
Yeah.
Had a dent in the stock exhaust, and the throttle tube was a little busted because the guy that bought it brand new laid it over and, decided immediately this isn't for me. Mm-hmm. I don't have the presence of mind to stop riding and sell my bike when I wipe out. I typically just hop right back on it and go. So, but like I said, if you can get it from a buddy that is taking care of it, that's huge. I'd like to know where you stand on a higher hour or higher mile bike that has been maintained mechanically well versus a lower hour bike from a stranger. Because I can completely roast a bike in one machine hour if I wanted to. I mean, it's all on a matter of how deep of a pond you sink it in.
I think it would come down to price for me. What's the price difference between the two? And if I know that a buddy of mine has one that he's trying to sell, well, I should know all the rides we've been on together, and I know the maintenance history of it.
Don't buy one from Trevor or AJ.
But if it's a good enough deal and it's a lower mile, I'll at least go take a look at it. At least I'm not going to decide right then and there. But
yep, I agree.
If it's neck and neck, and I really don't know what the history of that bike is, I'll probably go with my buddy's bike.
Yeah. You pull up and the guy's got like a Rockstar Energy hat and everything else. He's trying to channel his inner Ricky Carmichael every time he hops on that thing. And it's this, just use your brain going to look at stuff. I mean, it's a lot in how everybody carries themselves. And like you said, if somebody wants to move a bunch of drywall and plywood and a bunch of this other junk, just take a look at it. Chances are it's sitting where it's sitting for a reason.
Yeah. Yeah. If you got every bit of the plastic is Frankenstein zip tied together, you probably.
I take that personally, James. It's hard to get plastics for my Kawasaki.
I'm trying to think of anything else, man. Yeah. I would say too, if you have a motorcycle that you're looking at and it's very, very highly customized, that's probably a red flag too.
Yeah.
You know, if it's purpose built for one thing and you're trying to buy it for you, it's not going to fit you.
Right.
It was made for that one person, and you know, take like a, I don't know, like an XR650L that's been supermotoed and had the subframe chopped and all this stuff on it, and you're wanting a dual sport. Like, don't narrow yourself that you want that bike for that purpose, but this one, you know, oh, it's set up as a supermoto and I can buy wheels and do all this other stuff to make it a dual sport. Like, you're better off to just skip that one and keep looking. Don't, your time is valuable. Don't sit there and, you know, kill yourself trying to take something that's been highly, highly customized for one purpose and make it back into what you want it to be.
Yep, I agree. The stuff that's really highly customized in general, chances are what somebody else put on it isn't necessarily what you're going to be interested in.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, outside the normal things like skid plate handguards, etc. But if it looks like every part that Amazon's nice CNC or whatever that company is, every anodized part that's made is strapped to that thing, then you know chances are you're just buying something from somebody that likes to bolt a bunch of stuff together.
Yeah.
And you can decide how you weigh in on that. But
yeah. No. Anything else you can think of you want to talk about?
I think title.
That's a big one. Yeah.
Do not buy something that doesn't have a title. Do not let somebody tell you like, oh yeah, I just got to make the last couple payments. I'll mail it to you. It's like, okay, give me your personal address. No, don't mess with stuff that has title issues.
Yeah,
unless it's going to be something that you're literally just going to put around your property on.
Yeah. I love the for sale ads that you see. It goes through the list of everything on the bike, and at the bottom, no title, will write bill of sale. Well, that really doesn't do anybody any good. You can wipe your ass with that thing.
Yeah, that is meaningless. I remember when I was on the market for 350, there was one that everything checked out. The price was good, the claim mileage was good, and everything. And got in touch with the guy and said, I'm going to come look at it. And like 2 days before I was going to look at it, he sent me like his little come to Jesus message where he's like, dude, listen, the hours are going to say this, but here's the mileage. And he was explaining to me like it was some issue with the Odo readout and all this stuff. And he said like, well, if you compute like the hours versus the mileage, it says that it had to have been going 70 miles an hour for this long. And like, I was doing the math in my head. I was like, okay, so you had supermoto wheels on this thing. You're running it on the interstate. Like you're not pulling the wool over my eyes. And he was like, well, you can take it to a KTM dealer and have the hours verified through the ECU. I was like, okay, like when are you going to do that? Are you going to do that in the 2 days before I come to look at it? Because I'm not going to buy it and then go do it.
Yeah.
There's just weird stuff like that just walk away.
Yeah.
You're not out anything by walking away. You're better off going another couple weeks without a bike than getting the wool pulled over your eyes and really getting hosed on a deal, because that stings like nothing else.
Yeah, it really does, man. It's happened to me a few times, and it's not something I want anybody else to go through.
It's easy to have it happen.
And, another kind of on the legality side of it, if you show up and the bike looks awesome and you really, really want it, and you check the neck of the frame and the serial number's been ground off, you should probably run away from that one.
Nope.
It costs nothing, and there's multiple websites where you can take the VIN number down, compute it in that system, or call the state police and have them run the VIN real quick to make sure the thing's not stolen. And if somebody that you're out there trying to buy the motorcycle from is flipping out and saying absolutely not, walk away. The thing is hot. There's something
anytime, I guess this is the ultimate rule of thumb for buying a used bike, is anytime you state that you want to do something like, check the compression, if it's a bike that, they state doesn't run. If you make a reasonable request like that and they immediately get really defensive and flip out, walk away.
Nope.
You're not out anything by just walking away. Like I said, you're better off waiting a little bit longer to have a bike than losing the money that you saved on something that it turned out had dropped a valve or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to be that guy. Well, I think before we head out, man, we'll go through a couple of comments here. Chad Johnson says that ran well when parked. Yeah,
they all do, son.
That's such a lame excuse for anything. I don't know why it won't start.
It ran great when I parked it under this cherry tree 10 years ago.
Yeah. It's got 4 inches of pine sap all over the seat.
Yep.
Yeah. Rob says, yeah, it's bored out 30 over. God, that is such a
that's another thing.
Yeah.
You'll see bikes that they advertise freshly rebuilt engine. By who?
Yeah.
By who? Is it rebuilt by Jim Bob in his garage, on a dirt floor of a guy that doesn't understand, like, if you're replacing a piston that you need to gap your rings, or was it rebuilt by a reputable shop? Like, do you have receipts for it?
Yeah.
That's in my opinion, it's easier, unless you're looking for like some hopped up race bike that's a rarity or something, is to just try on something that's been boogered with as little as possible.
What piston did you put in that thing, buddy? Is it a Wiseco or is it a eBay Nomura piston that I've seen explode after an hour and a half?
Well, they're both made of some form of metal. I mean,
one's Chinesium then.
Yeah.
Our buddy Mark Nigmeyer says he rebuilt his 2001 XR 400 and rebuilt the shock for less than $700. Yep, you can do that, man. There's some bikes are way cheaper than others.
Yes, there's some older bikes out there that the parts market never dried up for. There's new old stock, more than you can shake a stick at. It's just a matter of utilizing the forums to figure out, if what you're looking at, if you're buying an older bike, still has the aftermarket support or not.
Yeah, and that, like you said, that really, I think, pays dividends in the end. If you know what bike you're looking for, and you can research what the typical issues are to look for going ahead before you even go check out the bike, you'll know what you're getting yourself into to fix. Like, I know some of the early model DR650s had some issues with the head gasket and base gasket leaking. Yeah. So if you show up and you see a little bit of oil seeping out of there, you know what you're getting into. Now, there's something to be said for a bike like that versus like one of the Aprilia SXV, like V-twins that, the thing needs completely rebuilt and there's no parts for it available.
BMW era Husqvarnas.
Yeah.
Pretty difficult to find parts for some of them, from what I understand.
The only thing that saves those a little bit now is that new brand out, SWM.
Yes. Yep.
You can get parts for them, but then you're still waiting on a factory in Italy to ship you parts for your redhead KTM.
And trying to cross-reference part numbers in some cases, it can get a little bit difficult. So
either stick with something that's newer gen or something that hasn't been changed in 30 years, like one of the Japanese 650s, I think, if you're going to buy used.
So, well, I'm going to make sure to recycle my beer can like always, so those eBay $100 piston kits can keep getting produced out of beer can metal.
Now, I was going to ask you something. I noticed there in your beer drinking this evening. Do you have a bartender helping you out there?
Myself, I just felt like getting a little fancy with it. I've had this glass in the cabinet for a long time, and it just felt right. Episode 15.
Crazy, man.
It's the dawn of a new era.
All right. Well, I'm going to go take some more Dayquil and try not to die at work tonight. Appreciate everybody tuning in and commenting with us here, and we'll see you next time.
Yep. Thanks again, guys.
See you guys.